women into uncontrolled hysteria, who prey upon the innocence of children.
Shocktails with Johnny Thunder.
I wonder if it isn't all a dream, a nightmare.
He's the vodka drunken ski to my glass Joe. In this corner, it's our ultra heavyweight champion of the world, Johnny Thunder.
Hey, what's going on?
Wait.
Is there some sort of boxing theme this month? Are you that well thought out? Is that what the theme is, or
I'm just
you're just
scraping
desperate?
the barrel for intros? I'm 1980 video game intros.
Cool.
We might have like 2 listeners out there old enough to get that reference. So.
Right. Well, you get what
all
you pay
these
for.
young kids, they don't get it.
No, not at all.
These youngsters, these millennials or Gen Zs or whatever the hell they are.
Okay, boomer.
No, fucking boomers are responsible for all our ails.
Yeah, I know. That's what I think. Somebody actually. I think I posted something. Somebody was like, "Okay, boomer," and I was like, "Dude, you realize I'm completely not in that age range."
Gen
so it's like,
X, mother.
Exactly, but it's like you want to use the joke. At least get my age straight, you asshole. But anyway, so how? So here we are. So it's what? It's actually we're recording. It's Krampusnacht. Did you know that?
Krampusnacht.
Yeah. Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers. Hey, and it's a good thing you weren't washing your hair tonight. You know, it's nice that you could carve out some time for us.
Yeah.
It's always a privilege.
Well, I try to make time for the commoners, and I like to, have all my adoring fans.
The deplorables.
No, it's the great unwashed. No. In poli-sci, it's called the great unwashed. That's what I like. Refer to you as basically. But all right, so what? So what are we going to do? We're going to talk about. Are we going to pretend that we're interested in talking about Halloween or talking about our trips, or what are we doing?
Yeah. Hey, by the way, are you still wearing your turkey hat?
No. Sadly, the turkey hat. I think
very
my
adorable.
wife packed up. I know. Go on. You like that though, didn't you?
It would be funny if it was a real turkey, but that's it kind of doesn't really hard to get it over your melon like that,
Yeah, that was later in the evening after I had 3 bottles of vodka and had the whole family in tears.
You had that little glow in your eye, that twinkle in your eye there, buddy. I kind of had a feeling, you might have been over your limit. All right, so, and as you would always say, there's no time for foolishness. Why don't we jump into the sponsors? Because I know that you've done your due diligence this time around, and you have a phenomenal sponsor lined up for your end of this foolishness, this nonsense.
This time around, I'm drinking a local microbrew. It's 2SP's Baby Bob Stout. So what about you, genius?
What are we talking about for the potency of that baby?
It's only 6%.
No, that's all?
Yeah, it's good. It's drinkable.
That's low for you. My end of this tomfoolery, we've got Mr. Miyagi's Medibles. Mr. Miyagi's Medibles, 300 milligram THC gummy candies. If you get your legs swept in a tourney, a few of these will lift your spirits high enough to take on the entire Cobra Kai. So wax off, bake on with Mr. Miyagi's Medibles.
Let's kick it off with a 2020 film preview. Some movies that are coming out in the new year. This isn't an exhaustive list, but let's just hit some of the highlights that I've seen. Don't even know that I'm going to check all of these out, but just put them on your radar. First upcoming in January is a reboot of The Grudge. And what's interesting about this is it's being produced by Sam Raimi, of course, legendary Sam Raimi, and it's written and directed by the dude who did Piercing and The Eyes of My Mother, which are both films that I enjoyed, but I really have no interest in a reboot of The Grudge. But if you like The Grudge, maybe the fact that it's Sam Raimi's involvement and it's also this, what's his name, Nicholas Pesca, or whatever, however you pronounce it, who did Piercing and Eyes of My Mother are involved. I think it's the same kind of a thing. I think it's the same ghost, it's the same kind of nonsense. So if you like the Grudge movies, maybe go check that out in January.
Wasn't that out like about a decade ago? It wasn't out that long ago, was it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think those were based on the Japanese films, so it was sort of the American remakes of the Japanese films.
Okay.
So I think they're doing it again. But I mean, like, we've had, I think there's another Black Christmas coming out. I'm like, they just remade Black Christmas a couple of years ago. So, I mean, again, it's just the cannibalization of Hollywood, which we've talked about since our very first episode. Mm-hmm. It just gets to the point where they're just constantly banking on sort of these known, commodities, and nobody really seems interested in taking chances on anything new. But, with the talent involved, perhaps it'll be interesting. Like I said, if you're into that thing, go check it out. Also coming in January is a flick called Underwater. I don't really know anything about this, but it's starring Kristen Stewart, and from what I read, it sounds kind of like a mix between The Abyss and Aliens. So it's a bunch of like researchers working in an underwater facility, and they find themselves trapped in this ocean bunker. And there's an earthquake, and all of a sudden these murderous creatures get released, and all hell breaks loose. So it sounds like that could be fun. I don't know that I'd go see it in the movies, but if you're into that sort of a thing, go check it out. Seems a little more sci-fi than horror, but certainly has some horror elements. Now, what I'm interested in, I think it's January 24th, is an adaptation of Lovecraft's Color Out of Space starring Nicolas Cage. Now, I don't know if anybody else caught his batshit crazy performance in Mandy last year. That movie was just so insanely crazy. Nicolas Cage in the past, I've been a fan of some of his films. Some of them I think he's just completely over the top. Not in a good way, but kind of in a bad way. But this could be completely interesting in the fact that the producers want to start this whole interconnected Lovecraftian cinematic universe, which I think would be really, really cool. So if this succeeds, we may get this whole interconnected sort of Marvel universe-esque, or like, the Conjuring films are all sort of in the same universe, but all based on Lovecraft films. So look for that in January. Also in January coming is a film called The Turning, which is the latest in the film adaptations of Henry James' novel, The Turn of the Screw. That stars, I think it's one of the kids from Stranger Things. Gretel and Hansel is coming also in January. Look, it's another take on, what is it, Hansel and Gretel. So this is Gretel and Hansel. Gretel and Hansel. See what they did there? They switched it up.
Gretel and Hansons.
It's the Bops. But I think this time, instead of like the whole gingerbread witch thing, there's an actual demon witch. So, again, I guess if you're into that, go check that out. There's a movie called The Lodge coming in February. I don't really know much about it, but I have heard some good things about it. I believe it's an Australian film, and it's about a mother who is trapped in a cabin with her two stepchildren during a snowstorm. There's some like creepy stuff starts going on. People have said it's this sort of family drama, kind of like The Shining. I think it's also won a couple awards at some of the film festivals. So if you're interested in that, go check out The Lodge. Now, a film that was completely not on my radar, and I saw the trailer, and it kind of was like, I was like, wait, what? They're doing a horror remake of Fantasy Island. Did you see the commercial or the trailer for this at all?
Okay, no, that got by me. I haven't seen it.
Right. Well, it's starring Michael Pena, which interests me because I think he's an interesting character. But Blumhouse is doing this reimagination of the classic Ricardo Montalban program from the 70s, but instead of sort of the fantasy romantic kind of wish fulfillment that the TV show had, this one I think takes a rather horrific bent, which based on the premise of the show doesn't seem so far-fetched, and I think it's kind of a unique take on it. But again, the sort of banking on known commodities in Hollywood instead of trying to do something original is a little, but
okay. That's as far as the premise. Are people going there to have their fantasies fulfilled, and then it goes sideways?
Probably terribly wrong.
Okay,
yeah. I think it's almost like maybe I'm guessing. I don't know anything about it, but I'm guessing it's maybe like the monkey's paw, where it's like, oh, I wish my dead son was alive, but then of course he's at the door as a zombie, or I wish, So whatever you're wishing has consequences. There's always a price to pay for magic. So I think that's the way this goes. So maybe we'll go check that out because it's mid-February and there's not a lot going on then. So maybe we'll see it. Another movie coming in February, and I cannot say I'm excited about this at all, is the Invisible Man remake.
How do you like that, eh?
I guess on the bright side, it's not connected to the Dracula movie that they tried to do, and then that Mummy movie where they were trying to launch this Universal, again, Dark Universe. Remember we talked about that before? But I don't know. I saw the trailer for this. It's been all over, and to me, it looked more like and somebody else pointed this out. It just looks like a remake of Hollow Man. It doesn't really have any of the trappings. And again, what sucks is that Wolfman remake of years back, that I think we were in the minority that really dug that movie, and I watched that again, and I really love the period film like that where they're trying to set it in a distinct period and evoke the original films. When you update it like this, I don't know. I just don't feel Invisible Man here. Again, I'm not saying I want a note for note Claude Rains remake, but this I don't know how many times we've seen sort of this kind of a movie. And like I said, the first thing I thought of was Hollow Man, and it doesn't really excite me. It's probably going to get my ass in the seat, but I don't know how optimistic I am for the film. But I guess time will tell. Maybe we'll be surprised. Fans of A Quiet Place, guess what? Can you believe it? Part 2's coming in March. So Emily Blunt's back, John Krasinski's back. So if you dug the first one, that'll be out. Now, a movie that I am interested in coming in April is called Antlers. And the trailers are actually pretty interesting. I'm not really sure what's going on here, but it seems that it's about this little kid, and he's got this like weird kind of a monster or something living in his basement. It's based on a short story called The Quiet Boy. So again, I don't really know too much about it. I didn't look into too many of these movies because I'm trying to keep some, I'm not surprised, but you know what I mean? Like a lot of these movies, I just want to go into them and see them without really knowing much about them. So I just want to put on your radar. Antlers looks like it could be interesting. A movie I'm not looking forward to, and I don't know if you dug the original ones, but Saw is being remade. That's coming in mid-May. This is interesting, though, because it's being written by Chris Rock. And the cast includes Chris Rock, Sam Jackson, and I'm sort of like, I don't know, I guess. But I'm not a real big fan of the original films. I know, again, Saw has, a lot of their fans, but apparently it's being considered, I don't know if it's really a reboot or it's like a loose sequel to some of the originals. But apparently, like I said, Chris Rock, I guess following in the steps of Jordan Peele, sort of is like, hey, I'm interested in horror and I want to take a stab at, writing something like this. So I don't know. Do you think you would check out Saw with Chris Rock and Samuel Jackson?
At least Peele's doing original stuff. That's the thing. Is that
well, that's a nice segue because guess what? Also coming in June of 2020 is Peele's remake of Candyman.
Oh no!
Yeah, that's funny how you.
No.
That's not the first time we've completely put our feet in our mouth, but yeah. So and again, cool. Probably that's a property that does deserve an update. I did dig the original, and apparently Tony Todd's back. I guess he's retired, or he's returning as Candyman. But it's interesting, like we just said, that you're getting these different takes. So whether Chris Rock's perspective on Saw or Peele's take on Candyman or a little bit different remains to be seen. Another movie that I'm not really caring about because I wasn't really sure about the first one, never saw the rest, and have avoided the TV show is The Purge 5, Chris. Can you believe we're up to part 5? July 10th.
I saw the first. I hadn't seen anything
we saw the
since
first
then.
one.
I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't.
and
and it was okay.
Yeah, that was enough. It's enough. The Conjuring 3 is coming September 11th, which I actually dug the first two. So this is the third official installment of the Conjuring series and the 8th movie in the Conjuring universe. All the usual suspects are back. This plot revolves around the trial of a guy named Johnson who stabbed his landlord to death in the middle of a drunken struggle and claimed in court that he was possessed by a demon. So, much like the other stories where they're allegedly based on real events, they obviously take a lot of liberties with the story and kind of create a fictionalized version of what allegedly occurred. So I think all of our asses will be in the seat. Patrick Wilson's back. Vera Farmiga's back. Again, I think they're both delightful, so we'll probably see those. Also coming, and again, I'm going to probably get heat, but Halloween Kills, I think, comes in October. One article says August, but then I also read it's supposed to be mid-October, so I'm going to go with the mid-October release. Obviously, it's the sequel to last year's Halloween reboot with Jamie Lee Curtis and her daughter and her granddaughter. We never got to review it on the show because I think the way that it fell by the time that we had the next show was too far removed to actually review. I wouldn't say I was a fan of it. There were some points about it that I liked. I thought it was unnecessary. I understand that they sort of want to just level set the franchise after the Rob Zombie films, but by the same token, I kind of felt like, Laurie had already had her conclusion in H2O and then some of the subsequent films, and this sort of seemed like an unnecessary retread, but they'll do what they want to do because who am I? And finally, the last movie is called Last Night in Soho. It's being directed by Edgar Wright, which I think is interesting because he's done Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and World's End. Don't really know much about it, but it looks like it might be an interesting film. So look for Last Night in Soho, I believe, sometime in September. All right, so I have a bunch of reviews. We're not going to spend too much time on these either. I got reviews of an Italian film called Blood Bags, an Australian film called Lost Gully Road, American Hunt, The Lighthouse. But first, we're going to start with a review of a flick called Pickaxe.
You remember there was a couple that came into town last week? Young couple.
Hello? Somebody there?
They're missing.
You guys heard of the legend of Alex Black, right? How he terrorized this little town and a girl named Adrian Palmer was the sole survivor?
Well, I thought Alex Black was just some local legend.
Pickaxe is currently available from Wild Eye Releasing. It's 1982, and the survivors of a series of brutal killings in a small town thought mass murderer Alex Black was dead. But the teenagers experimenting with the occult, kids watch out for the devil, awaken the monster from his grave, and he begins another rampage of terror. He uses his favorite tool, a pickaxe, to kill. Only those who have faced him before have any chance of stopping Black once and for all. As we've talked about before, I'm like a complete sucker for slasher flicks. Growing up in the 70s and obviously coming to age in the early 80s and having a VHS and a VCR, easy for me to say. Watching slasher flicks, Friday the 13th and Halloween and Freddy and all the other knockoffs, and here we go. I really went into this expecting that I would really dig this because this is right up my wheelhouse. I gotta say I was a little disappointed. It's a little amateurish. I think the acting is pretty bad. Even the plot, again, it's one thing to sort of just do a straight up Friday the 13th plot, which is fine. Like I said I was a big fan of American Horror Story 1984 this season. Narrative issues aside, and you want to pick apart the story, that's fine. But was 8 or 9 episodes and a straight up dedication to all the favorite tropes of slasher flicks, and 80s films, and I really, really dug it. It was over the top, and it was completely camp, but it worked. This did not work for me as well. Like I said, the acting was a little suspect. There were some editing issues which I thought were weird. I've read some positive reviews of this, so I felt like a little bit in the minority that I didn't dig this. There were 2 positives I would take away if you want to take away. First was the killer himself had a pretty badass costume. There's a good look to him. So if you're looking for a slasher or a killer kind of character for your haunt, or a character for your home haunt, definitely check it out for that visual. The other was I was pleasantly surprised by Sal Governale makes a cameo in this. Sal the stockbroker from Howard Stern is in this movie. Because I'm sitting there and I was like, why does that sound like Sal the stockbroker? And I was like, well, wait, because that's Sal Governale. So it was kind of cool to see him. He actually did a very good job. I was surprised. He only has a bit part, but he was actually pretty decent. So I don't know that I'd recommend it just to see Sal the stockbroker or a pretty badass killer costume, but I don't know. For me, Pickaxe is something I would not pick up. Oh, did you see what I did there? Okay.
Very clever.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Blood Bags.
You know what I'm gonna miss the most about Italy?
The boys?
The buildings. This place is obviously abandoned.
This is very stupid.
Besides, we're just a couple of girls. We're not criminals. Don't worry. We'll do it quick and painless.
Like I said, this is a film from Italy, released December 3rd from High Octane Pictures. A monster stalks the corridors of an abandoned mansion, targeting those curious enough to find themselves inside. Two friends break in and discover that all exits have been sealed off. The creature that hunts them is growing hungry for their blood, and there is no escape. Dun, dun, dun. This was a pleasant surprise to me. Again, because I had just watched Pickaxe, I went into this and I wasn't expecting much. What I dug about this one was the fact that it is shot in Italy. So automatically when you're getting the cityscape or the buildings and so forth, it's almost like you've got these built-in authentic sets. You've already got this sort of atmosphere built in, even as low budget as it is. The acting is serviceable. The two main actresses in the beginning, one's an American student studying abroad and one's an Italian local student. And basically, it's they want to go take some photographs for their college classes, and they break into this mansion, and then it just kind of goes balls to the wall right away, like within the first 10 minutes. So you're inside and you're not clear what's going on, but eventually there's a couple other characters get involved. There's police, and there's also some robbers who are trying to come into this house. It almost turns into I don't know, maybe like a Texas Chainsaw, where like everybody's like kind of trapped inside this house, and there's just like this weird stuff going on inside. What's interesting was it was a very unique take on vampires. They're described that these monsters that live inside the residence are sort of these blood deficient people. But I will say, again, talking about character design, the vampire kind of creature in this film was really badass. The sculpt on the head was really unique. It was kind of like big and kind of like melty, but suggested vampire. And it has these big bandages kind of wrapped around the face, and the eyes were just kind of sticking out, and bandages around the arms and so forth. Again, a really, really unique kind of a take on a vampire. So it's not a true vampire, because a lot of times they're like holding people down and just sort of like bleeding them out into bags, and the monsters drink them and so forth. But again, if you're looking for something unique in terms of a character, I really dug that. And there are a couple shots, again, because you have the benefit of an actual, old Italian mansion, where there's one scene where it's really lit almost like a haunt scene, where you've got other creatures besides the main vampire monster, and you've got these big blocks of red light and blue light and green light. It's towards the end of the film, and as the camera's sort of panning through this, I'm thinking to myself, this is like a really badass walkthrough. And that's as soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, well, that kind of redeems the film. But if you see it anywhere, I would definitely check out Blood Bags. It's really nothing unique in terms of the story. As I just said, it's sort of kids break into a house and there's vampires, sort of vampire creatures, and they just kind of have to try to fight to survive. But I thought it was interesting enough that I would recommend it.
Grazie.
Yeah, there you go. Now, a movie that was less successful in my eyes was Lost Gully Road.
There'll be someone there to meet you with a key. It'll be great. Treat it like a holiday.
That's easy for you to say, Cassie.
You can do it. It's only for a few days.
Cassie, there's something seriously wrong with this place.
You're imagining it. And Luce, your medication. Don't forget it.
I just want to leave. Please, can I just leave? You said it was just going to be for a couple of days.
Available on DVD and digital December 3rd from Wild Eye Releasing. It's described as a gothic-tinged Australian ghost story. Tells the story of Lucy, a directionless young woman who travels to a secluded cottage in the forest to wait for her sister. With no television and no communication to the outside world, she spends her days alone. It's set up that this young woman's like driving out, And she's talking to this woman who we later find out is her sister. And the sister keeps saying, like, keep going. I'll meet you at the cottage tomorrow or the next day. Stay off social media. Stay off your cell phone. Use the burner phone that I've given you. It's like, okay. And it's about an hour and a half long. And there's really no dialogue. There's really no other characters besides the main character. She talks to her sister a few times. There's another woman who rents the cottage out, and there's this local creepy shopkeeper. The whole thing, you get the sense that the main character, she's running away from an abusive relationship, or she's perhaps stolen something from this man that she's avoiding, or it's a drug deal gone bad. It's never made clear, which is fine. But the whole time that she's at this cabin, there are great expanses of time where there's no dialogue, there's no talking, and there's no real development in the plot. So we always talk about the slow burns, where it's like, I don't mind a slow burn as long as it sort of leads somewhere. This a lot of time was just, and I hate to say it, but just boring. There were just times where just literally nothing really is happening. And you get the sense that there is someone in the cottage watching her or stalking her. So immediately you think, oh, is it this mysterious man that they keep referencing on the telephone? Is it the creepy shopkeeper that you saw for 5 minutes at the beginning of the movie? You're not quite sure what's going on. And then just kind of out of nowhere in the last 10 minutes, it turns out, oh, it's a ghost. And oh, it's the ghost of a serial killer that used to live in this house, and he's the son of the mom who rented you the cabin. And she sets up victims for the blah blah blah, and then the girl jumps back in her car and drives away, and the car explodes off screen, and that's the end of the movie. And I was like, wait, what? I just, nothing sort of logically built up to make any sense there, and I felt it was almost dishonest with the viewer to sort of out of nowhere, kind of throw in this supernatural thing. And again, I usually enjoy sort of foreign takes on what are typically American kind of themes, and this one just didn't work for me. Again, the lead actress is pleasant enough, but again, she has really not much dialogue and not much to do. I mean, they spend 10 minutes on her trying to light a fire in the fireplace, and I'm like, is this germane to the plot? Is this interesting? Is this going to be a twist or something? And nothing really happened.
They just needed to fill 2 hours worth of time, and that's how it felt. And like I said, a lot of the times, if you have these slow burns, it's this purposeful build up to a reveal or the ultimate reason why everything happened. And as I said, maybe I'll be accused of, well, you missed the twist. All along they were suggesting that it's a ghost, and I was like, well, not really. I didn't see it. So this one, to me, if you're looking for something fun to check out on a Saturday night, I wouldn't check that one out. Now, another movie that I would not check out, let me get a drink. The next movie is called American Hunt, also released December 3rd on DVD and digital from High Octane Pictures.
Baby, how much longer?
Maybe 5 minutes. Finally. Trust me, it's gonna be worth it. Rise and shine, it's hunting time. So, here's the thing. We make a lot of money from hunting. But we don't hunt duck or turkey or deer. We hunt people. We're gonna give you 10 minutes to hide, and then my brother and I will hunt and kill you one by one.
We have to do something!
Do what? Get ourselves killed?
I can't just let her die!
We have no choice!
Why are you doing this?
Because it's fun!
A group of friends is torn apart when they become part of two human hunters' sick game. The men give them 10 minutes to hide, and then the real hunt begins. Yeah, it's basically the Greatest Game or whatever the hell that movie's called. This was another not good effort at all. It's a good idea, it's the idea that these people lure their friends or lure like groups of people up to a cabin, and then they sort of hunt them, but like really nothing. It's like an hour and a half of like nothing happens. I don't really know what was supposed to happen here. There's supposed to be like sort of these like the one character is, I guess, supposed to be sort of good looking and charming because that's how he entices people to come up there to this cabin. And the other one is supposed to be like this sort of like crazy redneck, but except he's not a crazy redneck, and it just doesn't work. It's really amateurish. The plot makes no sense. The final girl at the end then decides that she's going to become the killer, which makes absolutely no sense, except it's just every movie thinks they have to have a twist. So I would definitely avoid American Hunt. That one made no sense to me at all. All right, let's wrap this up, Chris, because you're so enthralled with my reviews this month. The Lighthouse.
Hanging on your every word.
You are. Like I said, let's just get through this. The last movie is The Lighthouse. Yes, The Lighthouse.
Tell me, what's a timberman want with being a wickie?
Just looking to earn a living, just like any man. Starting new.
On the run. Keeping secrets, are you?
No, sir.
Why don't you spill your beans? Why don't you spill your beans? Why don't you spill your beans? Let me go. Let me How long have we been on this rock? 5 weeks? 2 days? Help me to recollect.
Written by Robert Eggers, directed by Max and Robert Eggers. Now, Robert Eggers was the cat behind The Witch. Remember a few years ago we saw them?
I love The Witch.
Starring Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. Rated R for sexual content, nudity, violence, disturbing images, and some language. Basically, your trip through Arizona. 2 lighthouse keepers try to maintain their sanity while living on a remote and mysterious New England island in the 1890s. Now, that's pretty much as coherent as a plot summary as I can give you. I think the movie's about 2 hours long, and I liked it at the end of the day. There are many, many critics who did not like it. I think mostly the public opinion of the film was negative. If you did not like The Witch, you'll hate this movie. If you do not like sort of quote unquote art films or, movies that might make you think, or things that you're going to have to think about after you've seen it or while you're watching it, kind of like trying to understand like what's going on, you're not going to dig this. This isn't sort of a casual movie. It's not a popcorn flick. You just can't sit back and, kind of chill. But I will say Dafoe and Pattinson's performances are astounding. Dafoe should probably get an Oscar nomination for this film. It's really, really incredible. It's, like I said, it's really hard to explain because you're going to sit through the movie, and I think about basically halfway through is where there seems to be a break in terms of you're not sure what is reality, what is imagined, what is a dream, what perhaps is one person's perception of what's going on versus what really is going on. You have these 2 characters, and then at one point you're sort of trying to understand, like, is any of this happening? Are they even on the island? Are both of them on the island? Are both of them really real? Again, without giving too much away, like I said, it's a really complex kind of a flick. The visuals are astounding. It's black and white, by the way. And there are just some really, really incredibly powerful images and scenes throughout the movie. So really, again, the score is really interesting in the sense that there's a lot of like really like discordant kind of sounds, sort of upsetting sounds where you're a little unbalanced, you're not sure what's going on, and it's a lot of talking. So, if you're not into films that really depend on the performances and where you need to be engaged in the characters and the psychology, and as I said, trying to understand like what exactly is going on here, it's not going to be enjoyable to you. So I liked it. I hesitate to recommend it to anyone. I think most of our listeners are going to hate it. So I'm not going to say go check it out because you're not going to like it. I liked it. I'm still thinking about it. Like I said, it's one of those films where if you see it and you dig it, try to find someone else who also saw it and liked it, because I think there's a lot to unpeel here and there's a lot to kind of figure out what's going on. On the other hand, like I said, I've seen other reviewers and I've seen other reviews say it's a pretentious piece of crap and it sucks and it's more art house, snobbery and elitism and blah, 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 blah. So again, based on performances alone, which are something that I always focus on rather than necessarily direction, I liked it, but I think it's very well directed. I think there's a lot of interesting things here, so I dug it. So that's all I can say about that one.
Hey, by the way, don't forget, you got Scully and the Secret Santa this year, so make sure that you get the present taken care of, all right?
Oh, okay, so what is it again? The fetuses and dildos?
Whatever, it's up to you. You're the Secret Santa.
Well, I mean, that's appropriate, right? That's fun.
Bajankles.
Yeah.
Whatever,
Yeah. So I like how you work.
It depends on what your gender is, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know what is Scully. It's just a skull. Other. What's his? Yeah,
I think he's
his ethnicity. Other.
Anatomically correct at this point or something. I don't think he is.
Much to your advantage.
All that decomposition.
But yeah, dude. All right. Well, I'll catch you when I catch you.
All right.
Sign
off.
Well,
give us your sign off.
All right, everybody. As always, thank you for listening. This is Johnny Thunder saying, stay scary.
I'm going now. Heaven help you.
Please like and follow the podcast. Stalk us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Links in the description. And help us by sharing Hauntcast with all your haunted Halloween brethren. Until next time, stay scary.